When we were young, 2024 all album plays, 57 records front to back being played. The Emo Social Club, we're talking about them.
Yeah, we're getting through it. We're nearing the end.
We're nearing the end. We could not near the end. We could not talk about all these records without inviting on our friend Lisa from Stereotherapy. Lisa and I go way back to the MySpace days, friends from the very beginning of the emo internet.
Yes. Like, that's wild to think about, like, how long that's been. But, oh, my gosh, how crazy. And we share a birthday for anyone. Yes, February 10th. We are Aquarius or whatever they call it these days. But, yeah, this is awesome.
You know who else we share a birthday with is Vic Fuentes from Pierce the Veil.
Ooh, yeah. I didn't know that. I knew Daryl Palumbo of Glassjaw.
Yeah,
he
Daryl
has
Palumbo.
it.
Yeah. So all the astrology geeks are really enjoying this.
You guys have the best person to share your birthday with. I share mine with Ronnie Radke.
Yeah. Astrologist.
There we
Lizzie
go.
Out. Lisa, tell us a little bit about Stereotherapy, your podcast.
So I'm one half of Stereotherapy. I co-host with my best friend, Justine. Love her so much. And basically, we tackle that intersection of music and mental health because we found that obviously music helps our mental health. When we're in a rut, we turn to music. And it kind of turned into that through one episode we did. And we invite guests on, or we talk about mental health trailblazers as well in the scene. We've talked to like a lot of bands you guys have talked about. I mean, there's MyChem, there's Under Oath. But then we also invite other bands, and we've kind of become this place for unsigned musicians to come on, and it's been a great time. And the main thing I'm really proud of is the men's mental health, because we've had a lot of dudes that want to come on and talk mental health. So that is the number one thing. But we're on all platforms, and hit us up on the Instagram, stereo.therapy, stereo.therapy, whatever you want to say. But we're there, so go check us out.
On this episode, we are talking about Bayside's self-titled record, Bayside. Lizzie, before we start telling our opinions, our thoughts on this record, tell us a little bit more about Bayside and the album Bayside.
Bayside's self-titled album came out on August 23rd, 2005 via Victory Records. This was their second album. They finished recording and pretty much like immediately started to go on tour runs. They did the Zoomies Couch Tour, which I hold that tour near and dear to my heart. Not during this year, though. They toured with Nightmare Review, which if you know Nightmare Review, you're my new friend. I love that band.
Ooh, they're such a good band.
They also toured with I Am the Evelynts and The Forecast.
Yep. Friends of the pod.
And now I'm really upset about this tour because I remember hearing about it later on. They also toured with Hawthorne Heights, Aiden, Silverstein, and Spitalfield for the Never Sleep Again tour in 2005.
I believe that's the tour where their drummer, they got into a car crash.
Yeah.
They got into a bus crash.
Passed away, unfortunately.
And the drummer passed away, which is a major piece of this band altogether, from the history and the way that they've carried on from then. And I do believe that was that specific tour, which, you know, we look back and we go, that tour is a great package, and the era of that scene was thriving. Can all be taken away real fast.
They also had their single, Devotion and Desire, come off of this album, and a bonus track that was released only in Japan of their cover of Counting Crows' Long December.
I gotta go listen to that.
I like read it and I said, "Are you for real right now?" Like, okay.
Damn, I did not know that was real.
I didn't think it was until it was like we're there, and I'm like, oh, all right, interesting, fun fact.
Huh.
It was of the time.
Counting Crows.
Yeah,
I guess.
prime time.
I feel like it's like a Dustin Kensrue of Thrice. I've heard him do the Counting Crows, and I've seen him do it. I did not know that was a thing with Bayside.
Before we get into our thoughts on this record, make sure you are subscribed not only to us here at the Emo Social Club, but also to Stereotherapy on YouTube and anywhere you get your podcasts. Lisa is a friend of ours, and we are a friend of Lisa's. So if you subscribe to us, you got to subscribe to her and vice versa.
Legally.
We are going through all the records over here. She's talking about all the bands that you love too. So if anything, you know, you're just getting more of the good content stuff in your feed. So make sure to subscribe and follow on all the platforms. They're all down below in the description, below the like button and such. Here are my thoughts on Bayside's Bayside, the self-titled record. I remember 05 and just sort of being like, Bayside has been a band forever. Like, there's never been a time before Bayside. Bayside has just kind of been there the whole damn time.
They created music, actually. That's so crazy.
It is like we are all living in a scene that Bayside created. And it took me a little while, like reading AP Magazine and like getting to know like more about the scene and more about them to realize like, oh, Bayside is a band that came up after a lot of other stuff, but was very highly influenced by all the stuff I was already listening to. I have probably seen them like 1,000 times. They toured all the time. They toured everywhere. So it's like, yeah, I've seen them a bunch. I never really like visited any of their full records though. So I like heard the songs. I saw them, many times. So I knew Devotion to Desire. I was aware of it, but I was like, just not really checking out the full records. I saw them on tour in Sweden when I was living there for a little while. It was Alkaline Trio and Bayside. And I was like, yep, I'm going to that show while I'm here. That sounds fucking awesome. And it was great. I did relate them a lot to Alkaline Trio going into this. Lisa, I know you and I share absolute love for that band from way back. Going into this is kind of like a first listen. I have heard most of these songs because I've seen them live so many times. So this is my first listen to this record as a full piece of media from beginning to end. So the record rocks. The record is very good. It has like a lot of very different things on it, very different songs on it. That sort of keeps my attention from being just like the same song kind of over and over again, which is what I tend to run into with a lot of these like pop punk records. This is not a pop punk record by any means, but it's pop punk in the same way that Alkaline Trio is pop punk. They're not pop punk. They're just, but like, what else can you really describe them as? They're like kind of punk, but they do so much pop aesthetics and pop sound in their music that like, it's weird not to call them pop punk. Here's what I'll say off the bat. It is impossible to listen to this record in 2024 and not notice some of the lyrics on it and some of the song titles on it. And I'm by no means somebody who's like, wow, like that's too much for me with all the music I listen to. But it was somewhat surprising listening to this and hearing some of the lyrics on it. Overall, it doesn't take anything away from the record. I was like, I'm aware of this. Like it's like hitting me and I'm unable to not hear it. Essentially, I just was like, yeah, those that maybe like listened to a couple times, like, I don't love it. There were other songs though that I was like, these songs are like the absolute rippers on this record, and they didn't have a lot of that, so I didn't feel the same way about those. Anthony's voice is so strong on this record. He sounds great. He's always had this like really good tone to his voice. So when he's like singing these lyrics, I can really understand them. I think that's why I was like taken aback, because I'm like, sometimes on these records I go, what do you say there? Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But on this, I'm like, I heard you say that, man. I heard you say the violent thing you said. But his voice like has always sounded good. We just saw them live like a couple months ago, and they sounded incredible. His voice is just so good. And here it's like, clearly his voice has not changed. His voice has not lost a step. Like, he's still a very good vocalist. And beyond that, like the songs here, I think a lot of them stand the test of time. A lot of them are songs that I've just heard in Bayside set forever. I think every time I see them, they play some of the songs on this. As a huge Alkaline Trio fan, I think it's the right choice, the right answer to also be a Bayside fan. The answer is both. My top tracks from Bayside's Bayside. There are 3 songs that are all in order on the record. Oh. They looked like strong hands. I really like the vocal performance that Anthony does on this one. It's not quite a ballad. It's not quite a slow song. It just has this sort of like theatrical, like louds and softs, and the chorus is really good. I really liked the lyrics on this one. Again, it's really easy to understand his lyrics on this record. So this was one where I was like, oh, I like the lyrics on this. This is hitting. This is meaningful. This is impactful. And he is singing it in such this like theatrical, like just really showcasing like the song in a good way that I really enjoyed. Montauk. This was a super catchy song that reminded me a lot of Trio. And so of course it's like, it sounds like Trio, I'm in. I think this is like the perfect song to play for somebody if they were like, okay, I've heard Devotion to Desire, what else should I listen to? This would be the second song I would play somebody. Like Montauk is that exact Bayside format from beginning to end. The sounds are all there. Every performance that they do on this record is perfected on this song. So I definitely played that one a few times on listens of this record. And the third one is Blame It on Bad Luck, which I thought was a single. I was like, maybe this is a single. I could be wrong. Because I'm like, this is obviously one of the most catchy songs on the record. And it has that like theatrical, like upstroke guitar, dancey vibe to it that a lot of bands would do. And I'm like, is this the first time that was done by a band like this, that then other bands took from Bayside sound and made songs that also have that like theatrical, like dancey, almost cabaret vibe. I don't know if that's the right word, but it has that like that theatrical vibe that a lot of bands took from like this time period and like made their entire personality as a band. And this one I think just did it at like such an early phase that I'm like, maybe this was the earliest sighting. And I also really liked the lyrics on this one. I think this is one where reading the lyrics really sounds like a poem. You can really dig into and go, oh, this is something that has happened to me. This is something that's in my life. This is how I've dealt with situations that have happened to me like this. I think that, you know, sometimes with bands that like say like, yeah, it's really meaningful and it's really this, it's like sometimes you're just there for the vibes and like the emotion behind it is kind of secondary. And especially like on some of the songs towards the end of the record where it does get into more of like the violent stuff. It's like, hey man, I know you're mad, but like, I don't think this doesn't sound like reflection as much as it just sounds like you're angry. And this song sounded like reflection and sort of like identifying like yourself and seeing how your own behavior has impacted, you know, how you're treating other people and that. And so that one for me, like just really stood out as a great song on this record. My least favorite track from Bayside's Bayside, self-titled record, Bayside is self-titled. I don't think there's really like a bad song because there's a lot to like. Even on the ones where I was like, the lyrics kind of bother me. It kind of are like a little bit too much. I was like, but the song kicks ass. Like everything else in this is fucking awesome. So the song I picked as my least favorite track is Will Be Okay, because that for me was just the one where I was like, this is like the easiest example of something that doesn't hit for me in 2024. I don't like the way he says, I got sex. I just really don't like the way he says it. It like really took me off guard. Like, hey man, why you got to say it like that? And I think it just, it does have this sense of the 2005 dudes in bands not speaking about women in the best way. The thing that we think of when it comes to misogyny about bands is like kind of what's said in this song. And I think it's a product of the time. And so by no means do I think like Bayside feels this way. They're all married. They all got kids. But when you're a kid and you're writing songs and something happens and you're like, well, that was my real experience. I don't ever want to take that away from somebody. And, you know, I'm not saying that Bayside thinks all women do this, but I am saying like this song definitely sounds like that thing where a fan is going to hear that and go, yeah, women, right? And I'm like, ooh, there would not be a band who would write lyrics like this in 2024. I think that we have learned there are better ways to get the same idea across without having to write lyrics that could be construed as misogynist or like being rude or mean to women. And I certainly think that Bayside has grown up a lot in the time they've been around, that they're not doing this kind of thing anymore. And obviously these are songs that are not the singles or the main ones that, you know, I don't know if I've heard Bayside play Will Be Okay live at all in the times that I've seen them that I remember. So I don't know. I mean, maybe it's like, yeah, that was a time, that was a thing of our past. You know, we don't want to write new songs like that, but we're happy to play these records and be a historical cataloging of the time and know that we have adjusted, we have adapted, and we have grown. And we're not the same children writing songs about one person that hurt us and saying, I gotta blow up the world sucks, it's everybody else's fault, it's not mine. And then they have the song where they're like, it is my fault, isn't it?
Hey, don't worry, you gotta tell the online stans who try to keep canceling bands because of those lyrics that were written
I know.
like 20 years ago, which is wild.
I'm Lisa from Stereotherapy, and here are my takes on Bayside by Bayside. Obviously, anyone that knows me, I adore Bayside. I was into them when this record came out. I immediately, much like you, Brian, huge Alkaline Trio fan, was like, this is a really dark kind of band, and just like Alkaline Trio, so it just fit. And then they toured together, I think, multiple times. So it was a win-win for me. But Bayside was one of those bands that they're just, you can't put them in a box. You can't do anything like that. And this record shows that. Like they're not pop punk. And you think about the records that came out during this time, it was either pop punk or even towards like 06, 07, you had like screamo stuff. And then there was just Bayside. And I think with this record, you really heard that. I mean, Jack O'Shea is such a shredder on this record, and they'll have solos. And it's just this record, for it being so dark, I just loved every inch of it. Every time I listened to it and even diving back into it, I was like, this is my record. This is a Lisa essential record. If I could put it on anything. And it still holds up for me, like re-listening to it. It's like, all right, teenage me, absolutely love this record. But 38-year-old me is absolutely loving this record. And I think anytime I've seen them perform and they just kill it, and they're one of those bands that are just so timeless, and I think we're still going to be talking about them like 10 years from now. And obviously this record, it's almost 20 years and we're still talking about it today. So I absolutely love this record, and I know that is no surprise to anyone that knows me. I just fell back in love with it so much, and Bayside chef's kiss to Bayside. My top 3 tracks from Bayside by Bayside, self-titled by Bayside. I had to go, obviously, much like Brian, Blame It on Bad Luck, because this was one of those tracks that it starts off so slow. And it's one of those ones where some people would be like, I don't know about this. But when it picks up and you get into the lyrics, it is just like, all right, wondering what his, first fuck would feel like, his next fuck up, the next band that would change his life. And it's just like, damn, teenage me is into this now.
Yeah.
I love it now. And I've posted it so many times on any of my Instagram stories because I still listen to it so much. But musically, it just showed me that Bayside, this is why I love them, because it takes the song that it's like, should I be listening to this maybe lyrically? I don't know, but I absolutely love it. And yeah, still all these years later, I love it. Teenage me ate it up. 38-year-old me ate it up just as much. So it's so good. My next favorite song is where I'm going to lose some people, I feel, because some people don't like this one.
Uh-oh.
Don't Call Me Peanut.
Yeah.
I had to go there because I feel that it's towards the end of the record too. So it's one of those things that I think where they put it mattered. But it was one of those ones that it's that acoustic feel. And I think anyone that's gone through heartbreak or really shitty relationships, you get it. You get this song. And even if you're like, I wish it was like banger after banger, and then you get to this song and you're like, I'm going to skip it because I'm not in the mood. For some reason, this song has stuck with me still to this day, even though I'm in a happy relationship. I don't know what it is about Anthony Ranieri and this song on this record, but also like seeing it live. I've seen the like most just buff dudes in the crowd lose it to the song. They're like
so
hand
true.
to heart, and they're just like, like I may have your heart, he has your body. They sing it, and it's just, if you've ever been through in a relationship and then you hear this, it's just the anthem. And I've probably had it on my away message on AOL. Guarantee that if I were to ever like pull back those files. But I think it just showcases Anthony Ranieri's voice too, and how good it was, that it didn't have to be this loud thing. And anytime I've seen him perform it, it hits. Don't Call Me Peanut. I'm going to give some justice to it because you know what? It's amazing. It's incredible. And it's like my top 10 Bayside song ever.
I will say, if I heard that like post breakup, like early 20s Lizzie, I think I would be in shambles.
I would say you would put it on your AIM Instant Messenger wave message. But let me explain. AOL Instant Messenger was an instant messenger.
I had AIM.
It was like what we DM people, but it was like a thing
God,
you would go
I had
online.
it. I met my friends on my fan fiction.
Never mind. I never should have brought it up. I never should have mentioned anything.
Oh my God. My last favorite track, and I changed it because it was something else. And then even like 2 hours ago, I was like listening to it still. I had to go with Dear Tragedy. It's the closer of the record. And I think it's so fitting. And I don't know if it was calculated on Bayside's end, but I think it pieces it together so perfectly. And you get those gang vocals. You get that solo of Jack O'Shea again. And you just get that where it's like almost at that 2 minutes and 30 seconds mark where Anthony Ranieri is just in there singing those lyrics, and it's, calling them a smile faker and breath taker. And it's just I don't know what it is. I think it's just everything I love about Bayside in one song. So I had to go ahead and just move what I had there. But Bayside to me is one of the best bands to ever do it. This record proves that. Mic drop. Bayside, this album, the best.
What was the one you moved?
Montauk. But I love Montauk so much. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to switch it because, you know what? Maybe someone else doesn't know this one. And this, I don't know. I had to put it on there. My least favorite track from Bayside by Bayside. Honestly, I don't want to put shade on any of these tracks, but I was like, if I don't pick one or something from this, somebody may come for me and like, you're just kissing Bayside's ass a little bit. But I love them. I adore this band. So it's not so much of a least favorite of I don't like it. It's more so I want to get it over with so I can get to Devotion and Desire. So I'm going to go with just Hello Shitty.
Yeah.
It's my least favorite track just because, it's only a minute and some change, but I just feel like when I listen to it, it's a great opener, but immediately because I know it's coming, I just want Devotion and Desire to come on, so I find myself skipping it. So I went that route with my least favorite. It's still a good song. I want Devotion and Desire, so I'm going to go ahead and skip it. So yeah, Hello Shitty, my least favorite track.
It's a little bit of like an intro that doesn't need to be there if you just kicked it off with like that guitar riff at the beginning of Devotion and Desire, the record would. I don't think Hello Shitty is bad. I'm just like it would kick off in such a good way that like I don't know. I think you're right. I think if Hello Shitty wasn't there, it'd be fine.
Yeah, like I couldn't imagine like if that was the opener, Devotion and Desire instead. That's it. 100% best opener ever, but sorry.
You pop that record in, and all of a sudden it just do. I'm like, yeah,
right.
I can imagine that in 05 just being like, what the fuck? I'm in. Oh God, this is the record of all time.
Exactly
guys.
like that.
Oh shit. Yeah. Driving down the street in Long Island, I imagine.
These are my thoughts on Bayside's self-titled album. I knew about these singles just because, like, the singles that Bayside has overall, just because I've heard them because I was in college radio, so they would come up. But I never, like, put two and two together, like, this is Bayside, this is Devotion and Desire. Like, never really, like, click. But this is a band that I've seen so many times because they're playing with so many other bands and they're just there. I had to write up a review for their most recent single, The Devils. That was off of their most recent album. I remember messaging Brian being like, yo, Bayside kind of fucks. In their description, in their bio, it says that they're punk. And I love punk music. But when I would listen to them, I'm like, I hear the punk influences, but it is that weird in between of like, you have punk, you have emo, and then you have like punk pop. I would basically go that punk pop route in classification because it makes sense to my ear. Listening to this album in full, it really made sense. And I heard a lot of Alkaline Trio influence. And I really like this album. I think it's because they have a lot of their punk roots and sound into it. And they kind of like kept it consistent. I wasn't shocked because I feel like when I messaged you and I said, oh my God, this is so good, I felt like in general I would like them more. Good. My top songs from Bayside's Bayside. So my first one is Tortures of the Damned because it sounds so spooky.
I knew it. I heard the fucking bell and I'm like, Lizzie's gonna pick this one. She's gonna say it sounds like Aiden.
It just sounds really spooky. And I think too, once you get more into the song, to like somebody who doesn't listen to a lot of like punk music, it sounds like there's just like way too much instrumentals going on at one particular time. But to me, it just makes sense and it keeps me really engaged into what's happening in the song. It's just very raw, I think, too, with the vocals. One thing, too, that I like, which for this type of band and sound, I appreciate more so rather than a band that just is kind of like more pop punk. And it's like, yes, I expect there to be maybe like summer sing-along type songs. For more punk bands, they're not always going to be like on the like rhyming scheme. They're not on this rhyming scheme a lot in this song, and it kind of keeps you on your toes, and that's a very like within a punk essence. So that's why I also really liked it. This is a 3 out of 3 across the board. Blame it on bad luck.
It's a good song.
What you said about cabaret vibes and Dancy, I have the exact same fucking notes.
I mean, it's there.
No, and I was like trying to nail it. I'm like, I don't want to say this is giving like early Panic with like these cabaret like dancey type of vibe. I'm like, it is. It's just not obviously full Panic. But if you listen to it, it makes sense. And I really like that type of sound in general. Also, I don't know why this wasn't a single or at least like a secondary like smaller radio market single because I think this would have really hit big.
Yeah.
My last one. I do like We'll Be Okay.
This is my thought here. Am I the one who is like, as a man, I need to defend the women, and the women are like, we like this record, please stop defending us.
The feminism leaves my body.
Yeah.
Sorry.
There we go.
This is one I feel like sounds the most like an Alkaline Trio song. I also think because the lyrics are how they are, one, I think it is very reflective of the time, but two, I feel like now 2024, this is because I'm in Brat Summer. You could take this and make this a really cunty remix with another song.
The phrase,
and it would just
because
slay.
I'm in Brat Summer.
Oh my gosh.
I think that the misogyny in this Bayside song could really
But this
be
is about
switched around.
taking it back, Brian.
If Anthony Ranieri was in his Brat Summer.
I hope you all are.
Okay, I'll put it out there. Do the lyrics bother you at all, especially on like Evelyn or ones where it's more like the violence towards the partner or the woman or whatever it is in the context of it? Like, does it bother you at all?
No, I almost had "Will Be Okay" actually, but then like I was like at first, like when we were first going to record, I almost had that, and then I was like, no, but I do agree the way he says sex is like, what is this? Like, why do you want to emphasize this so much? And like, I don't have anything against Anthony Ranieri. Like, I love that man, but it's like, what is this? But I don't know, back then and even now, I don't have anything against it. And the violence, even in Evelyn, like I have nothing, which again, like someone's going to hear that and be like, okay, like, how can you
someone's
not?
going to try to cancel you real quick.
Oh, absolutely. Probably, but what, but I don't know. I still loved it. And again, I think too, even with like Alkaline Trio, like the violence in them, I've always have. So I don't know. It didn't bother me.
In my era of like high school, our music was like 303, Hollywood Undead, 3 Days Grace.
Yeah.
Like we already were like
the violence that came before begets the violence that comes after.
That was just what was big for us. And I mean, we obviously, at least majority of my friends I hung out with were not like, I hate women. We were all very open and accepting of each other as much as you can be in like, 2008, 2009 in high school as like, freshmen. But it's just something we always liked. And we were like, this is edgy. This is fun. Like, because we were more like, we want to be fun and dancey. And I mean, even like for pop music at that time, it was kind of like the same.
It was a little bit of female empowerment with like Kesha and Katy Perry.
It balanced it out because we had that, and then we also had our other crazy shit over here. That was just kind of like for us in the scene because it wasn't always mega popular.
Yeah, I guess like the vibe I get from this, a song like Sadie from Alkaline Trio being a song about like a story of Charles Manson and his followers and all that. That is like clearly like Matt Skiba telling a story about something else. And I think Dan in Alkaline Trio does more about like stories about him and people that he knows, and like it puts himself in that world, where Matt more is like, this isn't my world, this is the world I'm building for you in my lyrics. But on Bayside, I'm like, all of this sounds like you're talking from something that happened to you or that you want to do, or that these are actions you want to take. And I feel like that for me was where like the visceral reaction came from, is like Evelyn is not a character in a story. We listen to this, sounds like Anthony is telling a story about himself, and these are the feelings that he has, and this is his way of expressing those feelings that he has towards people that he really knows. It's like hard to like separate the very personal feelings that I get from listening to Bayside versus something that I get from another band where they're like, no, this is just music to tell a story, and the story is not necessarily about me. It may not be fully autobiographical, but there may be some of me in it, but I can separate it between the feelings that I have as the artist versus the feelings that I have as a person.
My least favorite tracks from Bayside, self-titled, I didn't really have any. I did really like this album. I didn't really have any qualms with it, if I'm being 100% honest.
Damn. You liked Peanut?
I did, actually. It took me a few listens because I was like, but I did kind of come around because I also thought it was like a really cute song title.
Of course you did.
I just don't feel like you're ready to have a Brat Summer, Brian.
I'm not.
No.
I didn't dislike it enough, and I tend to go, I tend to go to bat for acoustic songs like that, and the more like softer, because I think that a lot of these bands do really well when they just strip everything back and write a song that is lyrical and vocal and just one guitar forward. Like, I love that stuff. This one I was like, I mean, it's all right. It wasn't like I really dislike it, but it was like a...
Yeah, this one was like, I don't really hate it. I think like the lyricism is there. And again, like if I was young or if I was recently broken up with and I got over my angry period, which is usually prominent, and I was in my really sad times, I think that would hit. I think it would be devastated, actually.
All the violent lyrics, you're like, yeah, I would totally do that. I get it. Anthony, I'm right there with you, man. You heard the line about the head on a stick with a bow on it. You're like, that's me. He's talking about me.
Oh my God.
I'm in this one.
I am so surprised, Lizzie. I thought for sure, I was like, she's going to hate this song.
I like it when things are devastating.
Those are our thoughts. Those are our takes. Those were our opinions on this record. We all liked it, and I have defended women sufficiently. But there's one more thing we have to defend, and that's our thoughts and our opinion on this final question. Should you see this album in full at When We Were Young 2024? I'm going to say yes, although I do think that, I mean, Bayside is a great live band. Bayside is a band that I will absolutely see again because they'll be on the show. They'll be on the gig. Being that this album is almost 20, being that it will turn 20 next year, I can imagine Bayside doing this at When You're Young and then doing a full 20-year tour next year. I would like to see that show as well. So I may go for the beginning of this record and hear like the songs that I really liked, especially Blame It on Bad Luck, which you're going to hear anyway.
Yeah.
So I may go and see that and then leave in the middle. I would be interested to see how Anthony sings these lyrics now, knowing like kind of the shifts in the scene and the audiences that are there. I'd be interested to see if it's like an older audience in general, or if there is sort of a mix of ages. It's probably just going to be a bunch of big burly men singing all the all the lyrics back at Anthony. But yeah, I'd be interested in seeing it. I might leave halfway through and just hear the songs that I want to hear, and then listen to the rest at home quietly. And then nod my head no, so they know that I disapprove of it.
I would absolutely go see this if I was at When We Were Young. I think because, now I haven't gone, but if I was there, I would think I'd want to see it if I want to see a good set. And if I look at the other bands that are playing and I want a guaranteed great set, one I know all the lyrics to, all the songs. And Bayside's just such a good band. I wouldn't want to miss them. But again, much like you, Brian, like I would see what I want to see. And then if there was someone else, I may, because I have to think they're going to do a 20-year tour. It's coming. I hope so. Fingers crossed. But I mean, you can't go wrong with Bayside. So absolutely, I'd go see it.
I would say go see it. They're really fun live. I may also only try to duck in and duck out for a little bit because this is a band that I feel I much rather would enjoy a lot at a venue, especially for this album play, to get the full like essence of it. But I think if you are debating between Bayside and another band and you're just kind of like, I don't know, I could go with either or, I would say check them out because in general, they just put on a really good stage performance too.
That's where we'll be at When We Were Young Fest. Where will you be at When We Were Young? Hopefully you'll also be in the comments letting us know what you thought about our takes. Were we right? Were we wrong? While you're down there, make sure to subscribe to us and to Stereotherapy on all your podcasting apps. We got all these episodes coming out. Lisa's got a ton of episodes with bands that you may love already and bands that you will love when you listen to them.
Yeah, just come check us out. New episodes every Tuesday. And if you're into independent artists as well and you want to place, like, hit me up in the DMs. We'd love to share how music and mental health made an impact in your life.
Well, until When We Were Young, until Bayside, and until Bayside, self-titled, the record, we'll see you there.